Welcome back to the Alice Stewart Show on 96.5 The Voice.
You say you want a revolution. Well, you know, we all want to change the world.
Welcome back to the second hour of the Alice Stewart Show, 7:06 on a nice sunny Thursday morning. And it is amazing the coverage that we're getting from Washington, D.C. on this prisoner exchange. And every story, every day, there is a new aspect and element of this story. We know Saturday the White House announced the exchange of a military sergeant, Bowe Bergdahl, in exchange for 5 top Taliban members who are being held at Gitmo. And new information continues to come out on this and is raising a lot of questions. And here to talk more about this, as well as the VA scandal and other key issues in Washington, is our 2nd District Congressman Tim Griffin, who joins us on the Royal Overhead Door Hotline. Congressman, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you joining us. And you're a veteran, and served in our military, and you have a special keen eye on this and a perspective of this story. Your overall thoughts on this? First off, the idea of trading what is a prisoner of war, Sergeant Bowe Bergdahl, for 5 key Taliban members being held at Gitmo. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, we have had a long-standing policy of not negotiating and not cutting deals with terrorists. And there's a reason that we've had that policy for as long as we have. If you negotiate and cut a deal like the deal that was just cut, you basically send a signal that this is, this is the particular price for on the head of an American that's captured, whether it be civilian or military. And you basically send the signal to terrorists that if we can just get our hands on an American, then this is the sort of thing that we can get for that American. And the policy of not negotiating with terrorists is one that is in place to protect Americans, and particularly to protect service members who are on the ground, and also just American civilians around the world. So this is a break from a long-standing policy. And, I was talking to somebody yesterday about, if you were going to make an exception to that long-standing policy, you better have a really good reason. And it better be a very, very sweet deal. If you're going to have an exception, and I'm not saying you should, but if you start to peel back the layers here after you sort of read the initial news that there was some kind of deal cut, and you go, wait a minute, okay, so we gave up 5 hardened terrorists that were at Gitmo for a reason. Okay, that's strike number 1. And then you say, well, wait a minute, were we getting back someone that was a national hero or whatever? Why did we make this exception? And then you start digging. You say, wait a minute, this was a individual who had deserted, apparently,
right,
based on all the facts we know, who had renounced the United States. And that's what we know at this point. You're right. This is like peeling back layers of an onion. Every day there's a new layer. And the layers, each successive layer is as bad as the one before. And the White House has been caught flat-footed on this, which is mind-boggling to me. It seems to me anyone with any common sense would have looked at this situation and said, we shouldn't be doing this, and there's going to be a reaction to this. Then another layer that you peel back, and you go, wait a minute, they didn't inform Congress as required by law?
Right. And
which is routinely done.
Absolutely. And on that note, as you had indicated, Bergdahl, from all reports, deserted the battlefield, and yet Susan Rice on Sunday said that he served our country with distinction. That is one concern. And we had members of the military who lost their lives searching for him. Then
I was going to mention that too. I mean, you add another layer here, and again, it just one after the other, is that a number of our servicemen and women were killed trying to find him after he didn't just wander off, apparently he deserted.
He did.
And if you look at the MCM, the Manual for Court Martial, and the Code of Military Justice, you see that there are distinctions between going AWOL and deserting. Deserting, the guy just had no intention of coming back, apparently. So, look, it is anytime you save someone, that's a good thing, and it's certainly a good thing for his family. But that's a separate issue of whether this is the right policy for a nation of 300 million who have people scattered all around the world and is the world's only superpower. That's the question. It's obviously good. It's a positive thing when you're able to reunite a kid with their parents. But this is more complicated than that. And this is not an isolated incident. This is an incident that has direct bearing on the policy of the United States. And we still have lots of folks in harm's way, and we always will. Not just Afghanistan, but, Korea or Europe or wherever. We have Americans walking around who I think are less safe because of this. And look at the comments by John McCain. I think he knows a thing or two about being in captivity.
Right.
And he's been brutally honest on this, and this is an area where he has a lot of credibility. Look, this is another embarrassing episode from this administration. Period. I don't know what else to say.
Right. Just one more aspect on this, and then I want to talk about the VA scandal. But what are you hearing from your colleagues there in D.C. about the idea that, by law, as you indicated, the president is supposed to give members of Congress 30 days notice before releasing prisoners from Gitmo. And here he released 5 top Taliban militants from Guantanamo Bay. And now the fear, bipartisan fear and concern, that they will return to the battlefield.
Well, look, I don't know why the administration, I don't know why they were convinced that they wouldn't return to the battlefield. We've got no guarantees that they will, no guarantees that they won't, but you've got to assume that terrorists are going to be terrorists. I don't know if they said, we promise we won't. I mean, come on, this is ridiculous.
That's what they do.
Yeah, so I don't know. I will tell you that people are outraged on the Hill, and we are looking at what our options are. You're going to see a lot more stories and oversight on this particular issue. Yes, I think the administration, to some degree, may have done this to try to change the subject. Well, they changed the subject, all right, but the VA stuff's not going away. That's a huge problem,
right?
And they added another layer of embarrassment, sometimes I just can't figure out what they're thinking.
Right, and on the VA scandal, of course, this has been in the news for weeks and months, and for many cases for years. We know that there are stories of long lines, of cooked books. The Inspector General report came out saying that at least 1,700 vets were not even on lists to receive care. The reports that 40 people have died. You did call for the head of the VA, Eric Shinseki, to resign, and you welcomed the announcement of this, and you do believe this isn't a cure for what ails the VA. But what are your thoughts now? What do you see that needs to be done, and what has happened from what you are hearing after Shinseki's resignation?
Well, I called for his resignation, I think, May 12th, some time ago. Here's the problem. The first thing we need to do is get people who need care. So, which means if people are waiting 6 months for a procedure that they could get in a week in a private hospital, we need to be taking current VA funds, and we need to be paying for them to go to that hospital. This ought to be about how we get them the care they need quickly, as soon as possible, not whether they get it at the VA or not. So we could do that right now, and there's a lot of pressure to do that. I read in the paper today that this morning that they may have a vote in the Senate on allowing veterans who need help to just go to the local hospital or wherever they can go to get the treatment. So, but make no mistake, this is a problem with the way our civil service system is set up. The same problems exist at other agencies, HUD, Commerce, you name it. The big difference is the consequences of incompetence and failure at the VA are death and sickness, whereas at HUD it may be a slow grant waiting time or whatever. But these are the same rules that prohibit leaders, higher ups at these agencies from getting rid of people not doing their job. I mean, it's almost impossible to fire people at some of these federal agencies, and most federal workers are hardworking. They do their job, obviously, but there are a percentage that hide in the system, and anybody that's worked in the federal government knows of the people that do the work and the ones that you work around. And the reason you have to work around them is that the rules are such that it's almost impossible to get rid of them. And so we passed a bill in the House about a week and a half ago that gives the Secretary of VA the ability to get rid of some of these high-level folks without this laborious process that keeps them there for years. I'm not saying I understand why those rules are in place, because every time you have a different administration, you don't want every employee in the federal government being changed because of political beliefs. I get that, but we have such cumbersome rules that you cannot get rid of bad actors.
All right.
Or it's very difficult.
Absolutely. Well, we will certainly be following up on that. We're going to take a break and come back. And speaking of rules and regulations, I want to ask you about some new ones passed down. We'll take a break, and we'll be back with Congressman Tim Griffin coming up after this on the Alice Stewart Show.
The Alice Stewart Show on 96.5 The Voice.